Okay,
Hey,
right back at it. Hello, buddy.
how's it going?
Oh, it's all right. Having a day. How are you?
Good, man.
Thank you for coming on here. This is Buddy Nielsen from Census Fail. If you don't know who Buddy is, that's who he is. I've been doing Census Fail for a long time. From New Jersey, now out on the West Coast, but a buddy for a long time. We've had a chance to work together over the years. We actually had a little band for a
Yeah.
while. Didn't really never really materialize, but that's all right. People have shit to do. But hey, shout out to Bayonet, New
Yeah.
Jersey hardcore. Shout out to Paul,
Yeah.
Um and yeah, man, very outspoken guy with a lot to say and a lot of shit that I agree with too. So I figured why not? You've got a voice and you've been using it for good. So let's come on here and have a chat. So thanks for being a part of this, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for doing this, taking the initiative to do something for the music scene that we can all, get behind and raise some money and, have a conversation about what we can all do, in a music scene that's, your heavy music, I think, has a little bit more diversity. I don't really know. I know that, the emo specifically, like, the era that I came from has pretty much no diversity. So um, that's a problem. That's an issue, and it's definitely something. Well, let's say it has there's diversity in our fan base, and that's what's interesting. But there's no diversity reflected very much in the bands.
Yeah, or in the tours, I think. I mean, we
Yeah,
had talked about this where I was like, we were talking about older Warped Tours and stuff like that, and it was like, well, the fan base was really diverse, but the bands weren't, and it was like, well,
yeah.
who made that call? Like, why did that happen? And I don't know if you saw yesterday Scout, who runs Break Free Fest in Philly.
Okay, yeah,
It was a really interesting interview because she runs an all festival that's just geared towards people of color, where she books all the bands and artists from that community and the Black community, and it was a reaction to this issue, where it was like, yeah, these bands aren't being included on shows and not given a platform. So she created one, and they do it every year in Philly, and it's actually very cool. I'll send you shit later, but
that's
you should.
cool. Yeah,
I
I
think
think I think one of the issues is a lot of labels think that if there's a minority in the band, it becomes like a token thing. That's like, oh, it's like that's a gimmick, which is obviously in itself pretty racist and not true, but it's like they tokenize, they gimmick this idea that, oh, well, the singer's black, so it's like that's a thing. Like, how do we sell that? So it's, what I think it starts from I definitely know that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of different people into this styles of music and the subculture. I mean, punk wouldn't exist did you know that RuPaul was like got his start as a punk? Like, the reason why he started dressing in drag was because he was in a punk band to sort of be offensive. So anyways, our roots are obviously, all our roots from music, from rock and roll, come from African American roots in music. So it's troubling because I think a lot of people can't break through. And then when a band and can't break through because of it's seen as a gimmick, and it's not a gimmick. It's literally just the color of someone's skin. The label doesn't sign them. The manager doesn't work with them. And then it's very hard to get a pool of bands to work with, and then you kind of have a completely white music scene. But like, you have a lot of people in the fan base that are not white. So it's definitely a problem in our music scene and in underground rock, in rock as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few guests on who are like, in bands, singers of bands who are black artists who have talked a little bit about how it's been a little difficult to get ahead and stuff. And I think it, in hardcore we don't see it. In as it gets more commercialized, rock and metal music gets a little more it gets a little more difficult because I think there's marketing. It's like selling a perfect bottle of Heinz ketchup where it looks like this, it's always like this, and it's digestible for an audience that only wants this, and you don't change it. It's why McDonald's fucking hamburgers taste the same everywhere in the world. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the use of music as a commodity. When it doesn't fit that mold, it creates challenges. They have to rethink it. They don't know how to to exploit it commercially.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think one of there's this person that I follow. Their name is Janaya Future Khan, and they do a really good job of explaining that what we're all a part of in American society is this colonial project. And I've never heard it phrased that way, but when you start to think of every single aspect of the structure of what we do is all part of this colonial project that was all started by rich white guys. And so, you know, perpetuating the project is a label who doesn't want to sign a band, or manager who doesn't want to work with a band because it doesn't fulfill the goal of the project, which is that whiteness is what is deemed to be upheld. And that's sort of what everybody's talking about them with the structural racism and institutional racism, is that racism isn't just, it's not prejudice. There's, you know, this person, Janaya Future Khan, lays these out really beautifully in that there's bias, which is the little thought in our head when we see someone and we have a thought about them. And then we move into prejudice, which is then we start to populate that thought and create ideas around that bias. And then we move into discrimination, which is the action of the prejudice, of the bias. And then out of discrimination, we create systems, which is racism. So when you hear a lot of people talking about racism, how white people can't be racist, what, you know, how you can't be racist towards a white person, you can't, because to be racist towards a white person would mean that the systems in place would need to be built for people of color or run by people of color, and they would be oppressing white people, which has not happened and does not happen in America, in our system, and in any system around the world. So, you know, I think it's important for us to understand the reason why all these systems are in place is because we're always operating subconsciously from a position that whiter is better. And that is why labels say, well, you know, we can't really sign a black artist because it doesn't really fit the mold, because the mold is whiteness. And that's really all this Black Lives movement is trying to say, is that all lives can't matter until Black lives matter, until we go and try to dismantle these systems, which is a lot of what we're talking. I'm not saying we, which is a lot of what is being talked about. I am a part of it, but it is not, you know, I'm just trying to support people in any way that I can, which is to really try to educate other white people about.
yeah, I mean, honestly, we all want to be outspoken. We've all had trouble navigating this conversation, so I understand where you're going here. You know, it's like we're not here to try to educate Black people. You know, it's like we're trying to help our white people, like, kind of come to terms with facing these systems and facing these discriminations and going all the way back to those little deep layers of these biases and correcting them from the beginning and working through it. And it's like understanding why laughing at a racist joke leads to having a foundation of discrimination, leads to a system being permitted to be put in place. And it's like, it starts with those small things, and it kind of grows and snowballs into this. And, you know, it's not shit I ever thought about, you know, either, to be honest with you. I didn't go this deep on this stuff. This was a reaction to what's happening now. I mean, I thought that I was a proactive person. And if you, we've gotten into fights with racist people at shows, and we've done, you know, we've like upheld this purpose for a while, but not as, we didn't go deep enough, you know, and it's, you know, we keep having this conversation because this is the conversation that I have to have with my white friends right now. And it's like, yo, we fucked up. We didn't go as deep as we were supposed to. And we're being told to now by the Black community, and we need to fucking shut up and listen and go educate ourselves on these issues and get and understand all of it, all of the things you just said, all the things that have been echoed through this, you know, and that's what at least is happening here, you know, and I hope it's happening in other circles too. But yeah, I mean, all the points, you know, starting with the small things and moving up to the system. I mean, you outlined it in a very correct way for me, where it's easy to understand how these things could escalate, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I think to take into consideration is that we're all pre almost hardwired by the system to be afraid of black bodies, to be afraid of specifically male black bodies. We fear male black bodies and we perpetuate that, which is why police can't stop killing black men. They cannot stop killing them because regardless of all of the training and all of the stuff that they get, which is obviously not sufficient enough, it's that they internally don't realize that they are extremely fearful of black men, black bodies, and it's something that perpetuates our entire society. Even if you have, I don't care if you're the most liberal, non-racist person, you have that bias in you because it was put into you by this entire system, by the media, by everything you've consumed, and that's really what white people have to do. They have to it's like almost like, I want to say, like, is admitting that there is this issue, accepting that you are part of the problem by being blind to it. Not everybody's going to go out there and have to change other people's opinion. Like, you and I have a platform, we can do that. The average person feels powerless to make change, but that's not true. That's what they want you to think. Just by having these conversations and educating the people around you, that's how things change. Like, voting and all these things are very important, but we have to effectively change like our own internal way that we view the world in order to affect greater change. Because
Sure.
if you're just doing it because you think you can do it, and then you have these moments in your life where you're actively being racist but don't realize it, that's where you need to wake up. And that's sort of what this conversation is about, going deeper and seeing that. And that's the work that white people have to do, is initially that, and then supporting the other voices. But we have to do our own work personally. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's all of the above. It's different layers of it. It's confronting these, embedded biases, and it's also activism and organizing and protesting and fundraising and listening, and it's a combination of all of the efforts, I think, that are going to move the needle, because you've seen what, if everyone sits around and just has a peaceful protest and nobody thinks about anything from our side, from our community, nothing changes. And if they burn down shit, nothing changes. And if we just talk about it and we don't do anything, nothing changes. So it's like you need to be firing on all cylinders. Like, and everybody's just, at this point, I feel like everybody just should do what they can. Are you an outspoken guy? Do you have a platform? Okay, use it. Are you an intellect? Can you communicate well with people? Okay, learn about this, communicate it to the right kind of people. Are you an aggressive person who's going to defend peaceful protesters when
physically?
Good, go do that. Like, do what you can, what you have now. Like, use your skills and tools and platforms and all these things, and get in on a part of this change from whichever angle it's possible for you to do it with, I
mean, I think something that we can all do is learn about the history of our country, the real history of our country. I wasn't taught much of Black history. We have a month every year when you and I were going to school, the curriculum really didn't focus on much. I mean,
no, I didn't even learn about Malcolm X in school. We
didn't. He was too radical.
We get one dreamy story about Martin Luther King, and one about Rosa Parks, and a little bit about
Robinson,
Frederick Douglass and Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali, and then all of these dudes look like peaceful heroes, and nice things happen because they did nice things and they were peaceful, and they skip over no, there were riots. No, these people were getting murdered. Like, the government killed Black men, to suppress activism. And it's like, I didn't learn all that shit, and you don't, and nobody does. Nobody teaches that shit to you in high school. You have to go to college and take some advanced class if you're lucky enough to be able to afford to go to college and learn about this. Or some dude tells you about it on the internet when you're like 30 years old, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? And
I mean, I didn't even know about the Tulsa massacre. I never knew that, the Greenwood massacre, where the U.S. government literally dropped bombs.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not going to pretend I knew. I had to watch The Watchmen to
Yeah,
go,
I
is this
did like,
real? What the fuck? Like,
yeah,
it's an
yeah. I mean,
hour from my house. Yeah.
these are just things that are omitted from our history on purpose. It's that is something that everybody can do. We can all do that. We can all go and reread our history and understand, like, why are we here? Like, one of the things that upsets me so much about white people is that they just don't accurately want to look at why we're here. You know, it's it's just it's a really easy ask to just go, okay, well, why do you think people are upset? Like, just, what is it? It's a really, and black people, not just people, but it's very white to just be not political right now. And this isn't even politics. Actually, I should reword that. This is human rights. This is nothing to do with politics.
Well, politics is a part of it because it's systemic, but it is a human issue and it's an everything issue. I mean, when you open shit up, you realize like it's a part of it's ingrained in every part of America and culture now,
Yeah, and we're here because of the mechanisms in which, to think. I thought about this the other day, like, every African American, almost every, and I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but almost every African American that is in this country, they don't know their real last name. Like, that last name was given to them as passed down as a slave. Like, these names, like, your identity as a very being isn't upheld. I mean, I can trace my roots to towns in Europe. Like, I know where my family came from. I have an origin. I have this thing. Like, that isn't something that exists for black people in America. And like, that should give you a level of sadness, that's the reality, that you want to know why they're burning things down. You want to understand why they don't care about property, is because they were property. They weren't given property. Indentured servants in America before slavery, once they started to do the slave trade, they gave the white Euro indentured servants land. They stole it from the Native Americans, gave it to them so that they would sort of move up the chain and be better than the slaves. And that's a whole nother thing. But just in general, just thinking that, putting that on, like, when you really put that on, that coat of like not knowing where you originate from and not even having a last name that truly has this long origin, it really puts things in perspective, that this name, that your whole lineage was stolen from you, that
I mean, absolutely. It's an issue beyond deeper than what we could ever cover or probably qualified today. And unfortunately, I mean, you're definitely well researched and spoken on this stuff. I wish I could talk to you more about this right now, but I do have to keep the day moving. But I mean, I really appreciated this conversation. I mean, I know it's fucking white people talking to each other, but it's I want to set an example that this type of shit is necessary to happen. And, I appreciate you always being available to listen, and you self-educating yourself and being the outspoken person you are. I think it is better for everybody in this community. So, buddy, thank you again, man, for coming on.
Much. I appreciate it.
You. Yeah. I'm going to do this giveaway real quick if you want to hang out. So,
absolutely.
Life is not a waiting room test press. Nice one. Yeah. Very cool. And where'd you get this Poison Well? Does this come from your drummer?
No, I got it. I had a friend over there and they reissued it, and I just was able to get my hands on the test press.
Yeah. I don't even think, because I think I remastered that. I don't even think I fucking got one. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nice. When that popped up, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. I have a,
yeah. And another rare one with the Census Fail test press. So thank you for coming through with two awesome rare items. And I always appreciate talking to you, man. And
thank you.
Yep. Thank you, buddy.
Yep.
Buddy Nielsen, Census Failed. White people talking about white people problems. We have to do it. I'm sorry. It's important that we have these conversations with each other. And Buddy's been a guy who's been outspoken about this for a while, so it's nice to have one with somebody who's at least on the level. Census fail donations, $10 to soundrink.live. You enter our charity raffle right now, and you can win one of over 100 prizes, including this test press and this census fail test press and this poison well test press. All right, I'm 2 minutes behind schedule, and I don't like being late, so I'm skipping the break. We're going right to Vane. I see them waiting.